So we good to go? Okay, well, many thanks everybody for spending the time. You had a lot of choice of different sessions you can sit into. So I really appreciate coming and listening to me for a few minutes to share some of my thoughts on some of my experiences in working in this space. My name is Ted Orme. I'm VP of Technology for EMEA for Attunity. I've been with the company for 17, 18 years now. And Attunity is a company I've been around for over 20 years. We have a real pedigree in data and understanding that. Really, what we're going to try and focus on here is that link, is that business process link between your operational systems and specifically SAP, but Oracle, SQL, DB2, mainframe, iSeries, and like that link for that. We make that data available for your big data platforms, for Kafka, for cloud, for most. We bring the data into your platforms. So we heard straight up on the keynote this morning, the key moment there of data works. Why are they changing that sort of, because it isn't all just around Hadoop. Hadoop is getting a bit of a bad reputation, so it's really, it's about data, because that's what we care about at the end of the day, isn't it? And where does Attunity sit? Attunity brings that data, your most valuable data, to where you need it. And these are just, this is the sort of Gartner, this is their key processes. We're in the right space. We're both analytics and data and the two biggest bits of transformative technology that we're living through at the moment are Hadoop and cloud. Over the last 10 years, those two components, and where they've come together, this is where people are doing things that are new, that are interesting, that are really driving change and innovation within an organization. But, there's always a but in those sentences, you still have legacy. You still have your production systems that run your enterprise, that are core to running your business. They're not going to go away. But there is this challenge between the two. That is, on one side, your production systems should be there for running the business, selling more widgets, selling more policies, whatever it is in your line of business. Your production systems are there for making money. And your analytical and your BI on your query engines itself want access to that. And that's been a challenge for the last 30 years, going all the way back to Teradata and looking at their very first data warehouse project that they ever did with Wells Fargo back in 1980 or whatever it was. So here we are now in big data, cloud, infrastructure, and where Attunity sits to bringing this data together itself. So who we are, we've been around for some time. We have a large customer base. We've actually 44 the top Fortune 100, it should say, rather than 500. But we've been in this space for some time, and we have some pedigree in that component based around CDC technology. We're going to see where this fits in within the different environments today. That's standing for change data capture, capturing the changes from operational systems as politely as possible, from log-based only, to stream them into your analytical platforms. And I'm starting here with some early use cases before I dive into some of the sort of specifics around SAP and the specific, just to understand the sort of the challenges with the types of organizations we've been working with and the types of delivery that really have been helping them here today. And it really starts all the way about with, one of the largest banks in the world that we've been working with. They have a very, very large Hortonworks Hadoop HDP platform. But it was the early meeting we had with them was the boss of infrastructure. And their Hadoop infrastructure is supporting tier 1 and tier 0 applications. What does that mean? Tier 1 applications support the bank. Tier 0 applications support the country. This is a significant part. And now Hadoop is part of their enterprise infrastructure that's supporting the key components of that. And when Hadoop has that core components, that data integration there, that bit that sits between your production systems and the Hadoop itself becomes business critical. And it's no longer acceptable to run Scoop and run Pros against production systems that are supporting that level of environment today. That's where CDC sits, offloading that production data. Oracle, SQL, DB2, iSeries, mainframes, it's all in one product for us. And now our newest engine, our newest component, bringing SAP into that environment as well. So the multiple different environments itself, the food processor is the interesting one for the SAP data. We've been working with them for only about 2 or 3 months, and already we're now streaming real-time data out of SAP directly into their Hadoop infrastructure for both Kafka and HDF and HDP. So the mechanism for consuming that, and I'm a big fan of HDF and NiFi and the streaming process around that, we just feed the data, that EL component, EL and then T downstream, whether or not you're changing it to build solar, whether or not you're building, splitting and doing different components for the downstream processing, we're offloading it easily into those environments. But there are lots of challenges in order to do that, and let's understand some of those in more detail. Again, listening to some of those early keynotes, listening to Scott and Sean talking about all the data, the mega trends. I don't know if I don't, but the mega trends that they're building together. These are where our organization, the people we work with today, are living these challenges right now on delivering value. People see this over and over and over, saying, what is the value of this platform I'm doing? Rather than just building it for the sake of it, building environments because they sound interesting. The business value is always being passed back. You know, the people that hold up their hands saying they're part of the business, they're paying for these things. They want to see the value within that. Infrastructure need to deliver on that. The IT is often seen as being has often been seen as being a blocker. And we absolutely, we sell to IT at the end of the day. We sell to IT because IT, we enable them to deliver on the promise of the platform. We help them deliver on the analytics. We help them bring all the data into the platform itself. And it is your most valuable data at the end of the day. It is the most valuable data that is running the organization. That SAP data is critical for running your application. It's great that you can pull data in from weblogs and Facebook and other external data about things, but if you can't get actually the transactional data that is running the business, what are you enriching it with? I mean, if I just want to know a little bit more about my customer sentiment, I need to link that directly to the business. I need to link that directly to the data that is driving the real dollar value to an organization itself. So this is where you need all the data, all the different data between different environments. One of our largest customers being an automotive organization, they're probably speaking at one of the largest Hortonworks customers as well. We're streaming now up to about 4,500 applications. Oracle, SQL, DB2, and their SAP infrastructure as well, bringing all of that into the cluster. Then you can really, your data scientists, things that discovery and all the great stuff using Spark and that engines to analyze the data, you need to bring them the data as easily and fast as possible. So really the ability to deliver that, the ability to bring the data is where we're helping organizations today. And this is the one sort of architectural slide I start with early, and then we'll dive into some of the technology and the challenges around that. The flagship product that is doing this is a product called Attunity Replicate. Replicate is it's a standalone engine. We don't need to install anything on production systems. We don't need to install anything on the target systems for traditional database transactions. It does a full load, the full load being the batch engine, all the tables, all the structure, all the information, and at the same time starting CDC. CDC, again, as a technology, I kind of forget that stands for Change Data Capture. If today, right now, you were going to think of the most efficient way in which you can get data out of an Oracle system, the most efficient way, it is off-platform. What I mean by that is we're not installing anything on the Oracle. It's off-platform. All we're doing is reading the change logs. As the change logs come through, we read them in memory. As the commit, we push it into the target. So we're a standalone in-memory flow. We turn a database into a stream. That's the simplest way. And if you think of if you know Jay Krebs out of Confluent, he's one of the founders of Confluent, he has a really good webinar on understanding what it means to be stream processing. Think of a log of a database. It's traditionally getting longer and longer and longer. The old ways you maybe had to do log shipping and things like that. We're reading the log, turning it sort of on its side, and then moving that into the target system, into Kafka or into HDP as change logs and files. The important thing is you have a full immutable store of all the transactional history. So at any point in time, you can go back and you can replay those changes on your analytical platforms. That immutable store of transactional history is critical. It's critical for building new analytics and building the platforms itself. If you're living in a batch world of like end-of-day billing, end-of-day processing, if you're using sort of, you want to see just a snapshot of your, at midnight in a quiet time, you take an ETL snapshot, all you're seeing is then a point in time. All you're seeing is you've done a lift and shift, and I know that the bank balance is this at this time. You don't get to see the full flow history of all the transactions as they accrue in real time out of operational systems. So by turning an operational system into a stream, by taking an operational system like SAP, like DB2, iSeries, Z-Series, Oracle, and the like, turning that into a stream, and your analytical teams can start consuming that and build out all the actual sort of risk and anti-money laundering and process automation. And this is where the industry really is getting interesting, because you can start building those microservices out of Kafka to deliver changes to the business. Credit card fraud and transaction or process automation out of the source systems itself. And then you still have your historical insight, Hadoop, and somebody has a question of the data sitting in Hadoop side, you still have that at the endpoint itself. This is Replicate, and this is where we bring data out of operational systems and bring it into the target platforms we support today. All in memory, it can run on a Windows or Linux platform, but it's an in-memory flow of pulling data out of operational systems into the target system itself with easy GUI interface, and I'll show you some screenshots. And we're in the exhibitor stand as well, so some of our SEs are there, and we can do a live demo for you. We can show the product off, do the full end-to-end process as well. I'm more than happy to run that today. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail now around SAP and where that sits. So traditionally, Attunity have been a database. We're working at the database layer of understanding of moving around databases. But there's a challenge in SAP, because in SAP, they have pooled and clustered tables. They store data in clobs and blobs that have no meaning at the database layer. If you just looked at the database, you would just see a blob of data that actually has within it another sort of 10 tables with structured data within that. You can only get the meaning out of it if you talk at the ABAP level of the SAP structure to understand, demystify what the data is itself. So this is where the actual accessing to the SAP data is critical. And here it is about business use for real time and bringing that data out. The flexibility, though, is that SAP have they want to own you, don't they? They want to come into our world and we'll give you BW, we'll bring you HANA, we'll do everything. But in the modern architecture, there are different use cases. You need that data enriched within different environments. We ourselves, we are SAP Gold certified. We have another product that specifically lives within the SAP world that replicates SAP to SAP. It can take a slice of the data and move it around for dev and test environments. It can create sort of QA dev environments. It can help you migrate from EC6 to HANA. It's a tool that we've sold for over 20 years working within the SAP space. That's given us the knowledge, that's given us the structure around SAP. But also we help organizations, because our flagship product also supports HANA as an endpoint, in that we can stream data into HANA. We can bring data into the SAP environments itself. So your external DB2 mainframe, we can bring into HANA. Your external e-billing suite, we can bring into your environments itself. So that's where Gartner lists us as being that leading independent vendor for data integration, supporting over 45 different sources and targets. So you want your SAP data, you have it, but you don't want to take it just straight from BW. BW may already have, you've gone through ETL process and flow and cleanup, and it's just in a format. You want it out of your operational systems. You want it out of the actual, the CRM, ERP systems itself, into the newer platforms that you're building today. Whether or not you're streaming that into Kafka or putting it directly into Hadoop, you want to move it into cloud infrastructure. Then you can discover, you can work on it and build out your analytics. You want to maybe still move that back into HANA, because that may be your endpoint, that may be your target architecture that fits, that delivers to the business. But you need an ecosystem around that where actually the data can live within different environments. And these are the challenges we see, in that it's the combination of understanding the data, understanding the complexity and the structures around that, and being able physically, with a technology, to move it and make that available. And the biggest one at the end is what it says, it's the ease of which we can do this. Over and over and over, we hear organizations saying, well, I've got this transformation project, it's a 5-year program, we're sort of year 2 into this program, and it's still not working. I mean, I know we're still a bit sales hatty here, and the way that we come in and we work with organizations, typically within 2 or 3 days, we have products up and running and working fully end-to-end, streaming SAP data into target systems. It's that, it's our expertise. It is very complex, but we've been doing this for over 20 years, and that one thing, it's one of those things, if you just do one thing and focus on that one thing, you get good at it. And this is what we do and nothing else. We're not an end-to-end ETL engine for multiple processes. We do the EL part. We make data available. We unlock that silo, whether or not that's on DB2, mainframe, iSeries, whether or not that's Oracle, whether or not that's SQL Server or Informix or SAP, we unlock that and make it available to the platforms you're building today. And that's really the end point. And because we focus on that and nothing else, we think we're pretty good at it. And we can deliver on that promise to make that data available and work with you today. So how are we doing it? How are the structure itself? This is just bringing the data out of those environments through Replicate into the target platforms you're using today, whether or not that's Kafka, whether or not that's cloud. We're working very closely with all the main cloud vendors, whether or not that's Amazon, Azure, as well as the friends at Microsoft and Google. The endpoint itself for us is where you want the data. We will bring that to you, where your platforms reside today. I know in EMEA we're probably about a year behind the US. The US at the moment, though, they say it's about 80 to 85% of all their business is moving data to the cloud. But that's just straight infrastructure as a service. It's just platform as a service cloud. It's still, these are the largest organizations, the most well-known companies you know today. They just don't have data centers anymore. They'll just put it in infrastructure in a cloud platform. They'll still run their Cloudera cluster, their Hortonworks cluster, their Kafka clusters, their SAP environments, but they'll just run them in infrastructure that is now within a cloud environment. And we're seeing this more and more, and for us, it's just another endpoint. We fully support the wide area networks, the linkage between that. There's no challenges for us to handle that type of transfer and data today. So the specific use cases around SAP that we see around the use cases are probably very typical and very familiar to what you're trying to build today. And again, this is the interesting part that I'd like to have more one-on-one conversations with many of you here to understand where the link between IT and the organization today that are building and supporting infrastructure and the analyticals teams that are trying to then build that. Having that communication between those two teams is critical in that helping one team deliver the other, helping one team actually bring the application directly to it. And we're seeing more and more, and I think you've seen the press release about the Hive 2 and the ACID compliance and merge. We're seeing that a lot now. We're working very, very closely with Hortonworks and helping them on delivering that so that actually you get a replica, an ODS version of source systems sitting directly on Hadoop. I think that's the next wave that you'll see a lot. There's a lot of challenges around usage of the data on Hadoop. At the end of the day, is just a file system, but that full ACID compliance that you get within the new version is going to be really interesting to see how people are consuming the data. And that's a critical use case for bringing the data into those platforms. Today, we see a lot of Kafka. We see a lot of it purely because our CDC engine supporting Kafka is just a natural fit. If you're building applications and business processes out of Kafka and using that as the sort of the store or the core ingest component for multiple business units, we can just easily click, stream the data directly into Kafka. The topics, the structure, the schema definition within that's all predefined, all automated for you, so that it's just another endpoint for us supporting the platform itself. And everything is, in one world, everything is a simple web interface. The source systems that we can pull data on, we can access the schema, look at the DDL changes within that as well. But it does make it much easier to deliver on the platform itself. And we also have a full enterprise manager. If you're a larger organization with multiple data centers around the world that has several hundred tasks, several thousands of deployments, we have an enterprise manager that can sit on top of that and monitor and control, give you the reporting layer that to just show exactly what is going on within the enterprise today. But when we're looking specifically at SAP, traditionally, the Replicate product is looking directly at the database. So we're accessing Oracle, exposing a schema, looking at the tables and the columns. But within SAP, you don't want that. You talk directly to the ABAP level. You want the actual business objects. So here, as opposed to it being a the underlying sales table itself, you can actually see at the SAP layer what it is that you want to actually replicate. And then the underlying structures, we break those pool tables, we uncode the environments today to actually then give you exactly what it is you want on that target side. So the actual structure of the data, the business object level is being met, but on the target side, you actually get valuable information. You get product ID, customer, discount, price, environment, rather than the structure that is maybe just at the database layer, a blob that has little meaning if you just transferred that blob out of Oracle into Hadoop. What are you going to do with it? This is the structure. It breaks it and then gives you the actual data with meaningful insight into the target side. I've got a little bit more insight into that as well. But the important part is then how we move it into the target system is critical. There are only three moving parts for replication. There is reading from a source, getting the data out of a log, looking at a source system. There's our engine in the middle, which is the sort of the real-time flow, and then the target side of how we write it into the target. And here there are multiple ways in which we can do that. We fully support traditional data warehousing, Teradata, Netezza, Vertica, I can't remember how many now, but like I say, there are about 40 different sources and targets that we support. But on the target side, the messaging component for streaming data into Kafka, we also now support Microsoft Event Hubs, Kinesis on Amazon, MapR Streams is in the next release that's coming out as well. We're seeing that engine itself. We're seeing the use case for real time in all the different pub-sub mechanisms that users are using today as being critical for us to bring that data to those environments. And it's really the key component here is that you may already have some CDC technologies within your organization today. Most notably, we compete with the Oracle Golden Gate product. There's a bit of IBM, Informatica, and the like, but not all CDC engines are the same. Some CDC engines have flags and triggers. They install agents and flows. We don't install anything on the database layer. We're log-based only. It is the most polite way in which you can unlock your production systems and make that data available. So the key enablers for SAP that we really have to stress is that we are SAP certified. You're not breaking any of your SAP licensing and process around that. We are a good partner with SAP because we help them move around data and bring data into their platform as well. And they understand that the ecosystem has grown. They understand that they can't just turn their back on Hadoop and say it's not a problem. They need to show their value in HANA and the environments, the real-time engines are there. But alongside that, you have the ecosystem of the Hadoop platform around that. So we help move and flow data. We help the environments of bringing the data to where it needs to be, as well as bringing it into the SAP target systems as well. But being able to do that and support that yeah, that's all right. I've said enough on that side. So here's then an architecture slide that is slightly changed and gives the environments. I've spoken quite a lot about zero footprint. There's a little caveat here. There is a small agent for SAP that is needed. So the underlying structure for Replicate is that we're looking at the underlying database layers itself. Let's assume it's running on Oracle. So we don't need to install anything sort of on the Oracle database itself because we can just stream the logs, read out the logs and stream them. But we do have a small agent that lives within the SAP world that talks at the ABAP layer to understand the data. So it makes an RFC call directly to SAP to unlock and demystify the data itself. What is it that I'm looking to move? It creates that moment, creates that sort of metadata layer. It's a bit unfair to just call it just metadata, it's more than that. But understanding that data, we then feed that information to Replicate, and it can then access the logs to pull the data that you need out of the logs itself. Which means on the target side, you actually get meaningful insight. You get the data with the metadata, with the structures around it. You get the table structures and the names and the process, so that you can then start building the analytics quicker and faster, rather than having to go back and try and unlock exactly what all that data means on the system itself. So what are the sources and what are the systems that we're supporting today? Traditionally, it's EC6 systems, CRM, ERP environments. We can look at some of the older versions. We even go back to 4.6c. If you're looking at some of those, hopefully no one's running 4.6. If you run 4.6b, even then that's really painful. But some of the older systems we can still, because we're working in that space traditionally as well. But these are the transactional operational ERP systems of SAP. We're not looking to take things out of BW specifically, because BW has already been through a cleanup and a merge and a creation. And that's like taking it out of a data warehouse itself. We want to take them out of the operational systems, out of the systems that are running the business itself, and stream it into the newer platforms you're running today. So we also have specific customizations for all of the different modules you'll have. So we say because we've been selling a product directly to the SAP space already, we have I think well over 150 enterprise customers that are using us just for moving around SAP data. So they live within the SAP world. Mercedes-Benz and BAT are customers already for helping us move around SAP data, as well as many other sort of referenceable customers that we can talk about helping them. So the knowledge of understanding what the actual customization codes you have and the modules you have for each of the verticals, we have insight and knowledge about that. So I have to hold my hand up and say that I'm not the specific SAP expert. And we do have one of our SEs on the stand who has worked in SAP for over 20 years. And he has the true knowledge of all the different modules, all the environments. So if you want to come and see a live demo, you want to come and see a live environment to understand exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it, we're available on the stand. Just come in. If you want to book in a time, we can put in some time specifically to help you out, to show you that environments today. So how are we helping? What are the value propositions that making this? Really, it's the structure, it's the ease of use, it's the delivery, it's bringing the data into the platforms that you're looking to build today. And this repeating over the same message in a little bit of way of just enabling that through change data capture into the platforms. But here, I'll pull it back and this is one slide that I really like in working with Hortonworks. This is more from their last year's kickoff on this year. They've added cloud at the top in their hexagon models. But the HDP, HDF mechanism is, I think, critical in understanding how we're helping organizations today. Because everything here is I'd say, this layer here. Through perishable insight, actionable intelligent, historical insight. This is where Attunity are a really close partner with Hortonworks, because that component of bringing the data, the EL part, streaming data into either Kafka for HDF and NiFi and building the actionable insights, the real-time processing, the more driving innovation and different sort of more of an application-led delivery within the perishable insight side, as opposed to then just historical insight. At the end of the day, what do I if I just want to know how much I've sold over the last month, year, comparing Q1 this year with Q1 last year, then that's fine. Stream it, put it into HDP, run your analytics. That's something that you could have run before on BW, you could have run on SQL Server, on Teradata, and that's a nice message. But I think the message around the streaming part, where actually you can change the way you run your business. You can change the way in which actually the fact that some manufacturing system in Korea has run some process, something has failed, you can pick that up in real time and now know that there is some unique part number within that. You can do predictive analytics across that and say that part number is also in 5 other systems around the world that you want to flag immediately in real time, send notification to them and let them know that some critical system has gone down here, something else is happening. It's perishable insight that is driving change to the business, but it's of your most valuable data. This is the data that is locked within the systems that are driving your business, that has the most investment, most capital investment and human investment you have within the organization today. The data platform, the connected data platform, is no longer just at the end of the question. It's no longer just at the end of, well, okay, what are my answers? What is my historical insight? It's moving much more towards actually the operational systems of driving change, of driving innovation within the organization. And that's where I'm seeing these types of organizations are really getting the benefit out of the connected platform itself. And Oracle, SQL, DB2, I-Series, Z-Series, SAP, this is where Attunity helps, bringing all of that enterprise data directly into the platform that they're running today. So just a little bit reverse part of then who we are and what we do. We're, like I say, Attunity are we're a software company at the end of the day. We're on publicly traded on the NASDAQ. ATTU ticker. If you're US people are much more interested about that than us in here. But we sell directly to enterprise customers. We partner very closely with all of the big data vendors for bringing data into the platforms we offer today. But it's one of those, you know, if I ask here how many people knew about Attunity before today, a few, that'd be good. A lot of people don't. I mean, it's, here I am continuously talking about who we are. But it's one of those little known facts, actually, that Microsoft themselves OEM our technology. We're embedded within SQL Server Enterprise Edition. It's called out, the OEM, the Attunity CDC from Oracle. It's Microsoft trust us to put it in their flagship product. So you may not have heard of us, but Microsoft trusts us. We compete with Oracle and IBM. They themselves also OEM our technologies and embed it within their products today. We work with Teradata and streaming data to their platforms, HP and the SIs, all of the Hadoop distributions, working with Cloudera, MapR, and Hortonworks. We are an enabling piece of technology to bring the data to the newer platforms we're running today, and trusted by many companies globally to support their infrastructure today. But this is the one slide then just to understand what it is that we're bringing here today and how we're doing it. Unlocking production data, unlocking operational systems, and streaming them either into Kafka, into Hortonworks, Cloudera, MapR, your most valuable data that you reside within the production systems itself. And that's exactly what we're doing today. And because I took a bit of a gauge of the room of who we had and a little bit more technical people, I've got a couple of slides at the end, which I wasn't sure I was going to show, but let's look at that in a little bit more detail around SAP. So if we weren't here today, what would we have done? You go to the underlying database of SAP, and you'll see that there's some sort of pool clustered table that has some structure within it. But the way that SAP works, and the way that SAP pulls that data out, it didn't like the licensing mechanism with Oracle. So they specifically created these pooled tables, these clustered tables that would lock multiple data within one blob that then they'd save, because they didn't have so much storage. It was a cheaper way of doing it so that they didn't have to build out huge, great Oracle databases. So on one side, there was a technical reason why they did it. And on the other side, it was they wanted to hold that information. They wanted to have sort of some structure within that. So we could just go to the underlying database and pull out the data, and it would look something like that. You'd just get a big blob, start with, where's the value, you know, you've now moved the Oracle instance into another Oracle instance or that, and now you're looking at, you have to go to your SAP basis admin teams, and you'd be asking them questions about what are all these tables, what are all these ZZ tables, what are all these structures within that, and you're locked into this cycle of just every single time any change, any single time you've got to go backwards and forwards, and it is very painful. It is very, very complex. Because we ourselves tried to do this several years ago without the SAP knowledge, and customers sort of were unhappy. You know, they're just like, okay, great, I've replicated 3,000 tables out of Oracle, and I've put it into Hadoop. Now what am I going to do with it? So what do we add? What are we adding to that? By adding the SAP layer, we completely break that pool and clustered table. So you actually understand what the tables are. They have meaning to that. So instead of it being just a blob that has structure that sits at the database layer, we can actually sort of pull out the data to actually show you what that business meaning is, what the different structures are. And this is over and over and over. There are a lot of these tables within SAP that are locked within pool clusters, within clobs and blobs, which then only have meaning if you talk at the SAP layer within the business object layer to the structure itself. So on one side, we're talking to the SAP, extracting that information, replicating over the table, and then breaking those pool tables so that there is meaning to the data that you can actually build out and build applications itself. I'm treading on light ground here for my knowledge of SAP. I do want the structure that you do come and have a talk to some of our SEs to understand exactly the use cases that we've done, the customers we're working with. We've been let's say this product we only launched in December last year. We already have 3 or 4 real tier 1 customers that have bought it within a month. They see the value of what it can do and how they can help them today, and we've been very, very busy and very successful in understanding how we do that today. Saying that, we're coming down to just the last couple of minutes of so I'll hopefully put up some time for some questions. And like I say, you're more than happy to come over to the stand as well and have more one-on-one questions. But if there are any specific questions here today, I can have a microphone as well. Anybody has? Yes.
Do you support the HANA database as well?
So the question was, do we support HANA? So as a source, not yet today. As a target, we do, so we can stream data into HANA. As a source, it's something that we are looking at, and it's something that is. But at the moment, we see it more as an endpoint rather than as a source system itself. So, yes.
Very interesting talk. Not working, I think. Anyway, when you dump data onto a Hadoop file system, how do you handle updates of the transactional tables?
Cool. So the two, either we're streaming it to Kafka, and Kafka will be or traditionally today, we do the first full load, which is the lift and shift, and then we create change tables. Change tables that have the full before and after image of every transaction. So there's a little bit more metadata to do that. So it's every update is a soft delete and an update, that full before and after image. You then have to do some work yourselves to make those materialized views, to make the changes, so to understand what the data is. Now, the new Hive 2 that will support updates and merge, it's working very, very nicely. We have that already in beta and working with Hortonworks directly and helping them for that. And then we will directly support the updates. But at the moment, Hadoop doesn't support updates, so it's not as though we just deliver the changes in a change table format. We can do time partitioning and other things around that to make it easier for you to consume it downstream. But we're basically just moving the data in and giving that full before and after image of every transaction. Yes?
A typical ERP system has tens of thousands of tables. How much percentage of data do you cover? How much can you really understand?
Yeah, we can move all the data. I mean, that way, there isn't any sort of limitation of numbers of tables, of columns. So just at the SAP layer itself, it's, let's say, I'll have to have the SAP guy answer specifically. There are, not all the tables are pooled and clustered tables. So a lot of them are just normal structured tables that have meaning within them. But specifically because we're talking at the business object layer, whatever you need to move, we will move. As I say, the large telco that we're implementing right now in the US, they're moving, it's a 400 node SAP cluster of about 2.5 terabytes. There's a lot of data on there of their whole of their ERP system. So all of it, yeah. Any other questions? So it depends where the stream is. Kafka is the flavor of choice at the moment. Like I say, we're supporting event hubs from Microsoft, Kinesis, from Amazon, Streams, and other things. If you're streaming data directly, if you're just going from Oracle to Oracle, then it's real time. That creates an ODS. So that's what we do. If there's no Hadoop, we just go Oracle to SQL Server. If you want to create an ODS, a real time, transactionally consistent copy of your production system, yep, that's out of the box functionality. Sure. So we do read once, write many mechanism as well. There's a small component within that in order to enable it, which sort of outputs to our sort of a proprietary mechanism, and then we can write to multiple targets at once. More often, we're seeing Kafka as being that staging environment, because that holds then the historical store. Our own mechanisms, we can do read once, write many. But then if you wanted to go back and replay something, that's the benefit of Kafka. Your topic, you can go back, multiple subscribers out of that, replaying the transactions out of the queue. That's what we see in the benefit itself. Cool. Like I say, many thanks then. And do come by the stand and have a chat if you have more detailed questions. We're more than happy to also, at the end of the day, the last sort of sales pitch, we win business through pilots and POCs. We're competing with Oracle and IBM and Informatica and the like. As such, we have to prove ourselves. We just have a simple mechanism for doing that. We're more than happy to come and work with you and show the value of the product. So many, many thanks.